rapid growth guy himself, Matthew Pollard.
Wendy was a language coach that was based out in California. And one of the problems that she had was that there were so many other language coaches moving in, teaching Mandarin to adults and kids just like her. And she was struggling with people moving in from into California from other states. She was struggling with people moving in from China themselves, wanting to start a business and then deciding that the best business to open was a Mandarin educational company. So Wendy was really struggling, and she came to me with the problem, how do I compete in a really competitive market? Now, who here started their business in the last sort of 12 months? Is there a few of us? Okay. Who here knows what it's like to try and get their first few customers? It's difficult sometimes, and we're willing to cut our prices to the absolute bone sometimes just to get our first customers, to get our first success stories, right? Now, Wendy came to me because she said, there are people willing to charge $30, $20 an hour on Craigslist offering Mandarin coaching. I pay my staff more than that. I'm struggling to get $50 to $80 an hour from my pre-existing clients that are trying to get tuition somewhere else. And I'm also struggling to get new clients because every time I try and get a new client, they say, well, I hopped on Craigslist and I saw that I could get this for the exact same price or cheaper somewhere else. So she said, how do I compete in this really crowded market? And what I said to Wendy is, I'd prefer if we try to avoid the battle altogether. And that's the advice that I try and give every single business that I speak to. So on a quick analysis of Wendy's customer base, what we did is we discovered 2 specific clients, and it was only 2, where she helped them with so much more than just language tuition. These were executives being relocated to China. And she helped them with these primary 3 things. The first one was Galaxy. Now, if I say Galaxy here, everyone thinks Matt's about to talk about outer space. But Galaxy in the Eastern world, in China, it's their version of rapport. Keith, nice to meet you, Keith. So if I wanted to do business with you, Keith, I'd probably sit down and have a meeting with you in America or in Australia. We'd sit down, we'd have a conversation, and we would be talking, and at the end of that, what am I going to try and do? I'm trying to get you to sign a contract, right? Maybe, if I haven't sold too well, maybe next week I'll give you a call and we'll try and do the deal then. What happens if Keith still says no, and he tells me to call him back in a week later or a week after that? What do you reckon the chances of me getting a sale at that point is? Do you think it goes down quite substantially? Yeah. We're assuming Keith's dragging his heels and the chances of getting a sale is almost ridiculously low, right? We're kind of wasting our time. In China, they want to catch up for dinner 5 or 6 times before they even want to speak business at all. They probably want to see you drunk over karaoke once or twice. And the reason for that is they want to find out the kind of person that you are. And here's why. They're not talking 12, 24-month contracts like we do in the Western world. They're talking 50 to 100-year contracts. This is longer than some people's lifetimes. And because of that, they want to know the kind of person they're getting into bed with. She also helped them with understanding e-commerce and the difference between China and the Western world. And thirdly, she helped them understand the importance of respect. See, if Keith handed me a business card in the Western world, I would grab the card and say, great to meet you, Keith, and we'd keep talking, right? I would just ignore the card even exists. Then we go home and we're like, who's this guy again? In the East, if somebody hands you the card, you have to hold it, you have to cherish it, you have to look at it, and then you'll turn it over, and I'm no longer paying any attention to Keith. I'm listening to what he says, but I'm showing that I really appreciate the card. And then, after a little bit more gratitude, I'll almost bow, I'll pull out my card case, I'll put it in my card deck, and I'll put that back in my pocket, and then I can continue talking. Anything less than that, I'm not doing business in China. They're going to assume that I'm incredibly disrespectful, and they just will not work with me. People in the Western world, biggest mistake you can make. So the other thing she helped them understand is the fact that in China, while we can learn Mandarin, and that's great, if we don't try and reduce our accent, we're seen as disrespectful again. So this is a huge problem. So we go there, we think we can just speak Mandarin and that's great and we've done what we need to do, and they see us as disrespectful. They don't expect us to sound exactly like them, but they do expect us to have respected them enough to try. So Wendy did these 3 things, and I said, Wendy, you do so much more for these 2 customers. And she said, well, yeah, I'm trying to help them. And I said, so what are you actually doing for these people? And she said, well, they're just a few things, Matt. I'm just trying to help these customers. Now, who here does so much more to help their customers than what they say that they do to help their customers when they first try and get a sale? Everybody does, right? So I said to Wendy, is it fair to assume that as a result of you working with these clients, they're going to be more successful in China? She said, well, yeah, I hope so. She was stuck in her functional skill. The core thing she did was she helped them be successful in China. So we decided to call her business the China Success Institute. We called her coaches China Success Coaches. And we called her program the China Success Intensive. This was a $30,000 program that didn't even focus on teaching Mandarin. It taught e-commerce, it taught Galaxy, and it taught Respect. Now, it worked with the executive, the spouse, and any children that was being relocated to China. Now, why the executive, the spouse, and the children? Well, we're all in business. We can charge more if we sell to more people, right? But secondly, think about it. If you're a business and you're relocating your executive across to China, and the wife or the husband and the kids aren't doing well and they're not successful, do you think the executive's going to get called home? Do you think the chances of success go like this the moment the family's not doing well when they're relocated? Of course. So it worked for them. This was a 5-week program. And for that, she got to charge $30,000. And then we went one step further and we said, hang on a second. We're working to sell these courses to people being relocated to China. If I'm someone being relocated to China, who do I have to go and speak to? Well, I'm not quite from around here if you haven't noticed. When I got here, to get here, I had to go and see an immigration agent. Just like when you go to China. You have to go and see an immigration agent to get the opportunity to go and work in another country. So we went to some of these immigration agents who charge between $2,000 and $3,000 to get a client and organize all of this crazy amount of paperwork to relocate someone to China. And we said to them, how would you like to get $3,000 for recommending our service at the end of doing the immigration paperwork? They said, well, that's more than what I get paid for doing the paperwork sometimes. What do I have to do that? And we said, all we want you to do is at the end of doing the immigration paperwork and the successful outcome, we want you to say this: congratulations, you've now been approved to go and work in China. Now, I want to just double check you've done everything possible to ensure that you're as successful as you can be when you get there. And they'd say, yeah, you know, I've learned Mandarin, the kids are getting pretty good at it as well. We've got our house organized. I think we're pretty set. And they'd say, no, there's a lot more to it than that. I think you better speak to the China Success Institute. For every successful outcome, they got $3,000. They loved Wendy. I mean, they were getting more money off this without having to do any hard work. Now they were more focused on this than they were on doing the paperwork. And Wendy got $27,000 after paying them to do no hard sell whatsoever, for doing something she was already doing. I mean, this wasn't something that wasn't congruently her. This wasn't me coming in as a marketer going, hey, if we say this cool thing, we're going to get more clients. This was something she was already doing. She just wasn't telling clients that she did it. And she wasn't messaging it to the right people. This is the power of a differentiated and unified message. If Wendy had started with sales, she would have already lost. People are actively looking for a message that they identify with. And for that, they'll pay a premium. It's time to stop being a commodity. Stop getting in the features, the discounts. Get out of that game. It does not work. It's a long battle to the bottom, and it doesn't help any business. When I say this, frequently I have people come up to me, generally salespeople, and they say, Matt, I'm a salesperson that can sell ice to Eskimos, or I have staff that work for me that can sell ice to Eskimos, or the dream of an entrepreneur, I'll hire someone that can. And they say, so I don't need to. I can do that, and then I won't have to focus on this stuff. Think about it. If you're a staff member, or if you're a business owner that can sell ice to Eskimos, wouldn't you still make more money selling blankets? And if your staff find out that they can sell blankets instead of ice, don't you think they'll go and work somewhere else where they can earn more commissions? What you need to think about is, what are the unique things that you do above and beyond your functional skill? And then ask yourself, what is the higher level benefit of that? For Wendy, it was Galaxy, e-commerce, and Respect. The higher level benefit was China Success. For me, I'm a business coach. I'm a marketing strategist. I'm a social media expert. I'm a sales systemization specialist. I'm so many things, and it's complicated and nobody else cares. I'm the rapid growth guy. I help organizations, large and small, obtain rapid growth. About 2 weeks ago, I had a person that picked up the phone and called me. She booked in for a call, and generally when people book in for a call, my schedule's pretty packed, so it takes about 2 months to get a phone call with me. And she'd booked a call because she heard me speak at the Cedar Park Chamber of Commerce, which is right up here at North. And she booked a call because I said what I always offer. I'm not one of those people, if you haven't noticed, there's not a piece of paper on your chair saying, please give me your details, I'm going to try and sell you something. I don't do that. I do, however, have a 5-step process that talks people through the exact steps on how to create their uniqueness, their point of difference, their unified and differentiated message. It's completely free. And what I say is I don't hand it out and I don't get you to fill out forms, but if you want that, you can come see me after I finish speaking and give me a business card. And then I will send you that specific document that'll help you create it. She gave me a call, and what happened was she came on my website, she booked a phone call. And then she waited 2 months for that call. By the time I got on the phone with her, she said, Matt, I have to admit, I don't know what to actually speak to you about. She said, I applied what you said in this talk, and I went looking and I went right through those 5 steps. She was a florist, and she just went to a wedding show, and she came up with this really cool way of creating budget around floristry and creating a do-it-yourself package and all these other things. And she said, I have tripled my sales from going to one of these conferences. I've never had sales like that before. Just from applying that 5-step process. This is 100% possible for you. When I did this in the National Freelance Conference, which was in Austin, it took 45 minutes for us to work right through this. And what was sad about that is when I asked people how much time they spent on their marketing, or if this was the most time they'd spent on marketing, 95% of the room put their hand up and said, this is more time than I've spent on marketing since I started my business. Let's talk about niche marketing. Speaking to everybody is absolutely like speaking to, it's expensive and it's speaking to nobody. It's not a tailored message. So I say, Andrew, you've got a great business, you're doing what you're doing, and we've got Scott next to you. You guys have got different wants and needs. So if I try and speak to both of you, it just doesn't work. So I have to speak to each of you individually in your own way. And I have to pick, do I want to sell to a person like Andrew or do I want to sell to a person like Scott? If I try to sell to both, it's going to be crazy expensive and not really speaking to either of you. It's a bland message. Quite a few years ago, I made the decision that I wanted to start a business school. The problem with starting a business school, no one trusts a new school. No one trusts one. There were 2 markets I could have potentially moved into. The first one was the market of MBA students, people that had done degrees already, people that had already worked in a business and had a degree, and they wanted to make that next step. They wanted to move forward, and they wanted a degree that they could say, hey, I studied at this illustrious school. Therefore, you should hire me and pay me lots of money. These people don't want to study at a new school. They can't use this qualification to study, to use a leverage for the rest of their life. This would have been a market that I would have struggled every single day to get clients. I would have had to fight tooth and nail, and I would have made no money. Then I had the market of high school graduates. Well, here's the problem with high school graduates. A, I didn't have a fancy football team. There were no frat parties. And again, when you think about a place that you want to go and study, don't you really want to study at a place that offers you the ability to leverage your degree too? They would have come to me if they didn't get the right grades. And they would have stayed for just long enough to get the right grades to go and study somewhere else. These were 2 really bad options. And then I discovered the market of tradespeople, plumbers, electricians, tilers, carpenters. These people, school had let them down. They hated school. And because it let them down, has anyone heard the saying, if you can't do, you teach? This is what they told themselves. Why? Because if they believed that, then they could go home and sleep well at night, that school had let them down, and that's their view of school. The problem was, these people had learned their functional skill by leaving, probably at the age of 16, and making the decision that they were going to go and work for a tradesperson, and they were going to learn from them, doing some sort of apprenticeship. These people that they learned off generally taught them through aggression and sarcasm. It's kind of how you learn in those environments. And as a result, they slowly made their way up to becoming successful at what they did, and they finally looked around, they said, hang on a second, every single person here is making the same amount of money as me, and I'm better at it than everyone else. I know, I'm going to go into business for myself. So they did. Next thing you know, they're in charge of more than just laying bricks or laying tiles. Now they've got to look for customers. They've got to manage budgets and financials. They've got to hire staff, and They remember how to manage staff and train them. Aggression and sarcasm, right? They weren't making money. They needed business coaching. They needed help. But here's the thing, they couldn't afford business coaching. And they hated school. So we launched with business coaching at a price you can afford. 3,500 students within 3 years. That's rapid growth. These people would come to a class, 20 people in every class, all business owners. And they wanted business coaching, so we gave them one. We got a coach with a teacher's qualification. They had to be actively coaching in the market, and we allowed them to go out and work in these, and we called them mastermind groups. And at the end, they got a qualification. Their parents were ecstatic. 3,500 students in 3 years, all on a trade site, all by discovering that everybody is not our customer. Instead, we focused on a unique group, a unique niche. What you need to learn from this is you need to find an unmet need in a marketplace. And then you need to capitalize on that. Now, generally when I speak to businesses, they say, well, Matt, when I start my business, I'm gonna start broad. And then I'll start to tailor down once I work out what I'm really good at. Here's the problem. Your message, not only do you not have as much skill as somebody that's been doing it for 10 years, you don't have any customers and you've got to start from scratch and nobody identifies with you. We knew exactly who our customers were. Every single person that we speak to, we'd speak to a plumber. If Keith was a plumber, I would be speaking to you, Keith, and you would say, I'd say, what problems do you have in your business right now? And you'd say, no, I've got no real problems in my business. Business is good. And I'd say, well, Keith, generally when I speak to plumbers, and my team, we've spoken to about 1,000 plumbers in the last 6 months. And we know they generally experience this, or this problem. You by chance experiencing any of these? Well, if other people are telling you about it, actually I have all of those, plus these. We knew our customers better than they knew themselves. We were like mind readers. We knew exactly what they wanted. Why? Because we focused on that niche. We started small instead of starting mass market. Now, did we stay just within that niche? No. What we then did, once we capitalized on that market, is we said, well, hang on a second, hairdressers and florists, they're kind of tradespeople too, right? Next thing we knew, we had 500 hairdressers studying with us. And then we were approached by the Law Institute of Victoria and a large medical association. And they said, our people go to and get a degree for 5 to 7 years. They don't know how to run a business. They're kind of tradespeople too. And we said, well, okay. And we worked with them too. We worked with major football teams, championship football teams. We worked with the Australian Olympic team, all from defining our market as a small group and then expanding out later. So let's talk about sales systemization. I put this quote up and I'll give you a second to read it. If people can't read it at the back, actually, I'll read it out loud. Everybody has a product to sell. Even if your company consists of just you and your computer, look around. If you don't see any salespeople, you're the salesperson, right? When people see me speak, frequently they look at me and they'll say, Matt, it's easy for you. You know, you're confident, you kind of get up in front of people and you can talk, and you know, I'm sure sales came easy to you. When I was in late high school, I was highly introverted. I had a reading speed of a 6th grader, and I just had no idea what I wanted to do with my life. Worse than that, that's the face I had back then. Now, I should be careful because this is Austin. I always have to tell people, that was my sister's wedding, not my own. Occasionally I get in trouble when one of her friends is in the room. So what happened is, all of a sudden, I'm going to put this slide back for a second. All of a sudden, I made the decision that that's it. I don't want to go to school right now. What I want to do is, I can't do university. It was really hard for me just to survive doing what I was doing. I wanted to take a year off, and I convinced the parents, I will support myself for a year, just let me figure things out. So I took a year off and I took a job at a real estate agency. This real estate agency, now I should probably clear up, because real estate agency, they sell, right? I wasn't that guy. I was the guy in the back office. Please don't talk to me. I'm the guy that does the paperwork. Yeah? Just before Christmas, the company goes bankrupt. Now, Australia is slightly different to America. You guys take a week off at Christmas. It's our summer holiday and our Christmas all at once. There is not a decision maker anywhere to be found between the 20th of December and the 20th of January. We're on holidays, all of us. So I went looking for a job, and guess where I found one? Commission-only sales. The only place you can get a job. And after 5 days of product training, great product training, and no sales training, they put me on this street. They said, just go walk down that street, go and make sales. So I did, 93 doors later. It was 93 doors of walking into every person's shop, getting rejected, getting told to go and get a real job, getting reminded that what I was doing with my life, not quite appreciated by the rest of the world. And they were right. I was having a horrible time until the 93rd door where I made my first sale. And I remember it was a little shop and I sold him everything. And I walked out, I was ecstatic. I'd made $70. $70. And for about 90 seconds, the world was a better place. Until I made the realization I've got to do this again tomorrow. And every day for the rest of the year, right? That was not an option for me. So what I did is I went looking for another way. Now, for a lot of people here, they've probably heard of people like Brian Tracy, Zig Ziglar. They wrote wonderful books. But I had a reading speed of a 6th grader. It would have taken me a year to figure that one out. So I discovered this cool tool. Seen it? YouTube? Funnily enough, there's a lot more there than just cat videos. Yeah, it surprised me too. So I learned the steps of a sale, and then I focused on every single one of those steps and got better and better at using them and working on them. And all of a sudden it went from 93 doors to 70 doors to 40 doors, till all of a sudden 6 weeks later I was the #1 salesperson in the largest sales and marketing company in the Southern Hemisphere. It took 6 weeks. Shortly after that, I decided that I was going to open up a phone shop. And what I found within that market was that everybody was competing on, do you want to take a shot at what? Price. The market had become really competitive, and just like here, everybody was, we can offer you a package, we can offer you a discount. Yep. And the market was saturated, and it was all focused on price. And for most people, that's cool, we get to save money. As a business, what happens if your phone doesn't work? You're losing money every single second. So they need service. So we launched with service you can count on. All of the call centers were getting moved offshore, and businesses were getting worried that they weren't going to get the level of support that they needed. So we said, it didn't matter what company you went with. You could sign up with anybody. If you signed up with us, we would handle the customer support in our office for you with an Australian representative. We became the #1 brokership for business-to-business mobiles in the country. It took us 3 years. By year 3, we turned over $4.2 million. That's rapid growth. In 2007, I won a Young Achiever Award. But more than that, I went from scared to sell, terrified to sell, to teaching hundreds how to do it. Now, through my blog, my TV segments that I do, and all the other things, I'd like to think I teach thousands. When I say this, a lot of people will say to me, but hang on a second, Matt, come on, really? YouTube? Surely you had some form of natural ability. So I want to talk to you about quickly Nate Boyer. Has anyone heard of Nate Boyer here? A couple of people? You should. He played for the UT Longhorns at one stage. This was a guy that had decided, when he left the military, he made a decision that he was going to completely try something new. He went back to school and he decided to try out for the football team. He never played football as a kid. So he made the decision that he was going to learn, and very shortly afterwards, he decided to do what's called walking on the field. Now, again, not from around here, didn't know how hard this was. Kind of almost impossible, right? He walked onto the field and he made the team. He played for the Longhorns, and then he was signed shortly after for the Seattle Seahawks, making him 8 years older than the average player and the oldest rookie in history. And when asked how he learned his innate ability, he used to snap a football. One of those things that people can only imagine that you had to have that natural talent. Here's what he said. I would literally watch YouTube videos and Google on how to snap a football and all that. And that was my game tape, and I'd go out and I'd try to emulate it. He learned on YouTube. I'm going to leave you with one story. This guy's actually a really close personal friend of mine now. Derek Lewis approached me in 2014 in about August, and he had a real big problem. He had lots of people that would email him with inquiries, something that a lot of people wish they kind of had, right? But then, all of a sudden, emails would go up and back, and up and back, and up and back. And then, all of a sudden, they would ask one question, just one, and then he would answer it, and then no response. Anyone want to take a shot what that was? Talking about price, right? So he comes to me and says, Matt, no one can afford me. I'm too expensive and I can't afford to work for less. I said, okay. So people were doing it. What did you do about it? He said, I put my price on my website. I said, how'd that work? Now no one's contacting me. Cool. I said, here's the problem that you have. Firstly, you're giving a price without giving any value. And then you're competing against somebody on Craigslist that is willing to do it for $2,000 because they need money. Now, of course, your skill set and talents are a lot higher, but you're competing because they haven't created any form of value in you just yet. So I suggested do this. Write one email to them as a response. Let's assume Michael's the customer. I would say, Michael, thank you so much for this email. I actually checked out your website and I'm so excited that you reached out to me. I worked with a customer just recently that was in a similar field and we had an unbelievable time and the book's just finished and they're ecstatic. I would love to have a quick dialogue with you, if that's okay with you, before I give you a firm price, just to make sure that you and I are a great fit, and also so I know exactly what you're looking for before I give you a firm price. Is that okay? If so, below is a link to a reservation app that'll allow you to book in with my calendar directly. Every single person booked in for that call. Why wouldn't you, right? You were interested in the first place. His very first phone call, after understanding the steps of a sale, led to a $40,000 book. Within 7 weeks after that, he landed his second, $80,000. By the end of the year, he made just shy of $120,000. This was a guy that the year before, when he contacted me in August, had only earned $12,000. And the year before that, for the entire year, he'd only earned $27,000. This was huge, just shy of $300,000 last year. The difference between sales success and sales failure can be one simple thing. One simple thing in your sales process. You want to make sure you get it right. Now, this link here, there's no email opt-in required. You don't have to give me your email address to watch it. There is a video on that page that talks through the 5 steps to a sale to make sure you've got them absolutely spot on. And it talks you right through. It uses a really cool volleyball analogy. Great animations. Rapid growth is 3 steps. A differentiated and unified message, a niche market of willing to buy clients, and a sales system that actually converts from interest to paying people. They're all vital, and they're often mostly forgotten. Now, I like to leave with this quote. Most people know this person, right? Abraham Lincoln had a famous quote that once said, give him 6 hours to chop down a tree. He'll spend the first 4 sharpening the saw. Most businesses, what they do is akin to just keeping on chopping. It's time to sharpen the saw. Thank you.